Disclaimer. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice. It exists only to entertain, so please be entertained. An odd gentleman enters an apothecary in 16th century Germany looking for a particular or peculiar sort of medicine.
Hello, and welcome to my humble apothecary. What is it I can help you find?
Hey man, I'm looking for something special.
Oh, well, I carry many special medications. Is this for you or someone else?
It's for me.
Really? Are you sure you're not trying to clear up a problem?
No, I'm looking for medicine for me. I'm not here to buy poison. You can stop winking at me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's just that most people come here to buy poison. What are you actually looking for?
I'm looking for the real medicine.
Oh, strange how you say that. Now I'm lost in the innuendo. What is your ailment?
I need to be more brutal.
I can't even imagine what you mean by that.
I need to play more brutal. I need to play with more intensity, more anger.
What are you playing?
Lute. I'm in a band. You want to know what our band name is?
Oh, 9, I do not.
Syphilis section.
What?
It's a combination of syphilis and dissection.
Wow, that rare combination of tasteful and clever. I'm afraid I don't know what sort of medicine you're looking for.
I heard that you have
corpse medicine.
Oh yeah, I probably should have seen that coming. Well, right here we've got a bottle of fresh blood, right from the headsman's block, not more than a day old. This blood came from quite the wretch. I heard he was a serial jaywalker.
That doesn't sound brutal.
Okay, maybe not. How about this one? This looks like good blood, no?
What did that guy do?
Oh, moving violation.
Not brutal enough.
Oh, okay, here's one from a heretic. Burned the rest of him right after the execution.
That sounds better. Wait, what's that one?
Which one?
That one. Over there.
Oh, that's a 9. Well, that's dangerous stuff. You don't want that guy's blood.
How brutal was he?
Oh, that blood belonged to a 15th century surgeon.
I definitely want that guy's blood.
Very well. Fine, have it your way. Be sure to boil it before sunset, grind the skull up, and add it to the blood. Drink that after throwing salt over your head, and it should do the trick.
Awesome. I'm going to shred on that loot. Brutal loot.
Yeah, you can leave now.
I'm going to leave now.
Okay, yeah, go on now. Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay, I'm leaving. Thanks for the blood.
It's like half Scandinavian, half...
I was friends with that guy in high school.
Which one?
Yes.
We look at cases through our history. It's just Max in there and Mike and me. You gotta listen, you don't have to read. Poor historians, poor historians, poor historians.
Welcome, everyone. This is Poor Historians, the podcast delving into the archives of medical history. As 3 emergency physicians, we will explore the unusual ailments, treatments, physicians, and all related material having to do with the healing arts. I'm Max, and I'm joined here by my good friends and colleagues, Aaron and Mike. Gentlemen, how brutal was that first skit?
It's pretty brutal. I thought, I was... that accent needs work, but it wasn't in my repertoire before, so...
I wonder if we should take classes now that we're...
I just want to say I'm sorry to everybody that was listening. Oh, yeah, like a dialogue coach? Hey, be business expense probably, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
I don't know. I think maybe we can give lessons. We've been doing this for 6 months.
Yeah, we probably could, right? No, that was good. I liked it. I want to hear somebody shred the lute.
That's sweet lute music. We have any shout outs this week?
Yeah, the shout out. I mean, the shout out is also the inspiration for the episode, and that's RN Luke.
Is that his first name and last name?
Yeah, Luke. His last name's Skywalker. And I think he hates that because when I see him, I'm always like, Luke. I think he's
I'm sure he's never heard it before.
Right.
Sure.
So I don't think he's a huge fan of that introduction. But anyway,
just before you ask, if you come up to me and ask me if my favorite song is Maxwell Silverhammer,
You're not going to like it?
it's not. You know what? Don't start singing it to me because it doesn't.
Nobody knows what it is.
Fortunately, as the ages go by, it is becoming true.
Oh, dude, Bang Bang, Maxwell Silverhammer came down.
No, let's move on.
Is that She Bangs? She Bangs.
No, I don't. The Skywalker bloodline is problematic. So I could see Luke, not wanting to be part of that. That's okay.
Yeah. It will be fixed with the Filoniverse, whatever.
Yeah.
That's for another podcast.
Well, yeah, they are retconning it well, but Luke is still, he's got an interesting body of work there.
Everybody's favorite heroic curmudgeon.
Yep.
All right. We digressed.
We definitely digressed.
Luke came up with the idea for this, or the inspiration for the episode. So thank you, Luke.
I do appreciate that he's suggesting something that isn't so doom and gloom.
Right? Yeah, this is actually, it's very lighthearted.
It's a break for us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, not problematic in the history of medicine.
Shouldn't make you wonder about the good nature of humanity at all.
Do we need some sort of disclaimer here? Just that we're going to be talking about some gross stuff. I mean,
we might need a little trigger warning, maybe.
No, there's if you looked at the title, you saw that it was corpse medicine. Yeah. And we're going to be describing a variety of ways that corpse medicine was used. And I think, generally speaking, the main warning would be it's kind of gross and morbid.
I thought it was core medicine. I thought the P was silent.
Well, after looking at some of the other spelling you had in the document, I believe that.
Like sit-ups? Is that what you mean?
Tell us about corpse medicine.
All right. Core medicine. Corpse medicine. So there's actually... It's very interesting. This is one of those things, again, I think we've learned this over and over again, as we research these topics, you could do such a deep dive. And there's this author that had written a book called Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires, The History of Corpse Medicine from the Renaissance to the Victorians. Dr. Richard Sugg. He's a lecturer in Renaissance literature at the University of Durham. Not sure if that's in North Carolina or in England. Okay, so it's England. Really interesting writer. So I looked at his body work, and then there was an article from the Smithsonian.
Nice corpse medicine body of work. I see what you did.
I know.
There's no way he intended that.
Yeah. So it looks like he's written quite a few books on this. Another one's Murder After Death, Literature and Anatomy in Early Modern England. So kind of right in our wheelhouse.
I think we could be friends with him.
Yeah. I think he sounds like he's awesome. And again, really like compelling, interesting writer.
Very cool.
So the argument is that corpse medicine is essentially cannibalism, or corpse medicine is cannibalism.
Yeah, but it's prescribed by a doctor, so that makes it better.
Right. Well, it's funny because at the time, historically, we were looking at the new and emerging world, and, they were arguing that they were savages in the new world because they ate other humans. And then at the same time, we literally ate other humans. One was for medical treatment. The other was for sustenance or whatever, or, some religious thing.
It's all about context.
Mm-hmm. So, you have to think. So back in the 16th and century, back in the old times,
the 16th and 17th. Okay, that's hard.
Do it either.
16th and 17th centuries.
Thank you,
Aaron. Do it in like a teacher voice.
Yeah. So we would, medicine was thought to be from the humors. Remember our humors, our biles, and all of that. And the belief was that like cures like. So, and what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about its history, and then I'll just go through each of the maladies and then what they use to treat. And you'll see like cures like. That was a thought anyway.
Absolutely.
So in his book, Sugg suggested the question, I guess historically, was, should you eat human flesh? And that wasn't the question. The question was, what sort of flesh should you eat?
Much more interesting question.
Right? Which one? I'll take the tenderloin. I don't know if the tenderloin does anything. The psoas?
What would be? Yeah, I imagine it's probably pretty tasty as far
Yeah.
as meats from people go.
Probably. It's probably the best cut.
It is the filet mignon of the person.
Oh, the
Mhm.
best cut. I don't know. You get a lot of muscle groups that I would eat before the
Ooh,
psoas.
you're right. Maybe the masseter.
Ooh,
Not
interesting
that's
choice.
going to be in a moose bouche. That's going to be just a little, just a little like plate before the main course. That's not enough
You're
meat
right.
to even like. Plus, it's probably really tough because the masseter gets used so often, right? It's not
Yeah,
gonna
you're
be
right.
marbled very well.
Yeah, weird that the guy with the murder basement is very opinionated and has already thought this through this far. Yeah. He's like, obviously you serve the muscle that is chewing as a appetizer.
Hmm.
Well, yeah,
He's been there before.
obviously, yeah. I mean, a friend of mine, you know,
You
And
served
he
a
just
friend of
sits
yours?
back and enjoys the irony.
you know what? I've seen Yellow Jackets and I've seen Alive, so that's where. Do you guys remember Alive? Oh my
I
god,
remember that movie.
we got kicked
Oh,
out of
yeah.
that. We got kicked out of that movie because we couldn't stop laughing. I went to see it in high school, and for those who haven't seen Alive, it's actually probably a pretty decent movie of the what was it, Uruguayan rugby team that crashed in the Andes, and then
Yeah.
they had to turn to cannibalism to survive, as you do. I mean, they were way up above it, but they started eating the butt first, and we were in high school.
Isn't that how babies are made?
Oh geez, yeah, we've
Another cut.
digressed. So yeah, so we just
Do not cut that out, Max.
we literally got asked to leave the theater. They're like, you need to leave. We're like, but they ate his butt. Yeah, it was.
That's, if you want a more tasteful, humorous take on human cannibalism, I would suggest you look up Cannibal the Musical. Very early work from Trey Parker and Matt Stone of South Park fame. It is pretty amazing for a college project. What were we talking
Cool.
about again?
Oh,
Cannibalism. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, fair
corpse
enough.
medicine. I'm not.
All right.
So in the centuries of number 16 and 17, there were a lot of proponents to the use of corpse medicine. There were some vocal opponents as well. But yeah, so corpse medicine dates back to, as far as recorded time, we think Egyptians may have, eaten human parts in order to cure medical ailments. It seems like it hit its peak in the 16th and 17th centuries in Europe.
Nice.
So Europeans, they ingested these medical concoctions. They had human bones, blood, fat, brains, and any other organ you could think of to cure really what seemed like really common maladies. And again, they looked at the New World and they're like, those cannibals are savages, but we're going to eat our own people for cures.
I mean, they were eating their own criminals.
Yeah, well, yes and no. There were some, I'm sure, like people that were unfortunate enough to have been killed for these treatments. All right, so French King Francis I apparently always carried a piece of mummified flesh in his purse. Man bag.
It's a man purse. Yeah. Immersed.
It's a carry-all. So his quote was, "Fearing no accident, if he had but a little of that by him." Whatever.
What?
It sounds like if he had a piece of mummified flesh on him, that if he were injured, he'd take a couple bites and he'd be fine.
What?
Yeah. I've actually got a friend who's
This is going to be a weird transition.
no, I thought about this when I heard it. So his dad is, I don't know his nationality. It's kind of like very Western Europe. Anyway, so his thought was he carried around a thing of garlic. And every time he's like, if I got to run up the stairs, I pop a garlic. He like gives his energy.
Yeah, but garlic is not the same as mummified.
Burns.
No, I know. But I thought of him when I read this. I was like,
Okay.
this guy, take a little bite. Well,
Yeah,
good
totally.
to go.
That's the same connection I'd make. And
Yeah.
I'm the weird one. Yep.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
I wonder if they lifted weights back then, and rather than doing creatine or like pre-workout, they would just, eat some
muscle.
eat a mummy. Yeah, like
only the
Craig's
guns,
like.
only the biceps. All the mummies just have the
So they never ate the mummified remains when they did legs. So they always skip.
They always skip leg day. You're right.
So the remains that these people were ingesting, the thought was that they were considered to contain the spirit of the body from which they were taken. So there were certain types of individuals that they would want, I guess, pieces of flesh from that were youthful, that were had all these qualities that they would potentially want. So they wanted. It's not like they're going to eat a really old person with impotence and like
insane.
gout. Yeah, because then you're just going to get gout and impotence.
That makes sense.
So it's funny because even there were a couple lines again in Richard Sugg's book. He had mentioned like historically, and I think this was in the Smithsonian article as well, that this is most likely documented in like some Shakespeare plays, like, and then even Da Vinci had written about it. So Da Vinci had said, and this is a guy that was like trying to discover flight, and he was also eating virginal meat.
He was just getting the downloads the aliens gave him. You know that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
That's
probably.
fair.
yeah.
Mhm.
If you're at the spearhead of the Renaissance and you are just discovering all these things, I feel like you have carte blanche to do a lot of weird stuff till
You're
you figure
right.
out what sticks to the wall, you know?
Yeah, and the stuff that was good lasted through time, and then the stuff that was questionable, like, you know what? We give you a free pass on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Da Vinci said, "We preserve our life with the death of others. In a dead thing, insensate life remains, which, when it's reunited with the stomachs of the living, regains sensitive and intellectual life." So he's arguing like, if you eat someone's meat, then it'll be reborn in your stomach, and it'll help you out too.
I'm going to have to go behind the scenes with the listener here and say that Mike skipped over a sentence I had to address. And that he said, I think in reference to the Shakespeare part, that it was challenging to pick it up in his writing because, quote, it was all Old Englishy.
I put that in there
End
because I
quote.
thought that would be something that you would say.
It's,
Oh God. Uh-oh.
I was going to say, you just triggered both the English majors on this podcast.
Ugh.
What would I have needed to do? Like hyphen the Y?
I just really no. That's not. I was just. You just said it was all Old Englishy, so it was difficult, which is not untrue. I had like an English major stroke when I read that.
Actually is completely untrue because it would be Middle English if anything, and Da Vinci didn't write in Middle English, and Old English is.
No,
No,
I was
Shakespeare.
referring to Shakespeare.
Oh, okay, yeah, still not. Yeah, not.
Is that Middle English?
No,
you angered the Aaron.
No, it'd be. Oh, geez. Well, never mind.
Newish
I forgot where the dividing line was. Chaucer was Middle English. That was about 1000, I think. Right. So 500 some years before. Anyway, we can cut that out.
Anyway,
boring.
you guys digress.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
I hope one of my old professors finds this. Anywho.
I'm sure all your professors are old now.
Oh, boy.
All right. So now we're just going to talk about some of the cures, and we'll be able to chat about these. Some of them are awesome. But epilepsy, it seemed like epilepsy was kind of like a plague back in the 17th century.
And basically, for the general listener, epilepsy is just a description for having a seizure disorder or having the potential to have seizures.
You would argue that we all have the potential to have them.
You could make that argument.
Seizure threshold.
Everybody does, but folks with epilepsy are typically nowadays on medications
lower
because
seizure threshold.
They are more readily able to go into a seizure. Mm-hmm. I'm sure this was dealt with very nicely back in the 17th century.
It was, and it made perfect sense. Yeah, so these French physicians in the 17th century were looking for a cure for epilepsy, and their recipe, and this is a quote, it's a tincture of hardened human flesh. And I'm not sure what that means. Maybe smoked, maybe cured some way.
As you do.
Cut into small 4-ounce pieces, steeped in a wine, set in a large vessel of horse dung.
Oh, lost me there.
Oh, yeah. Took a hard right turn right there.
It was starting to sound kind of decent.
Yeah, but this was very specific. Like this is the menu. Like you type it up on allrecipes.com and like, oh, here.
Well, yeah, if that didn't work, you trephinate them. So, yeah, we're good.
So, but for this tincture to actually work, it had to be from, and this is another quote, the flesh of a young man who had a violent death, together with the membranes, arteries, veins, nerves, and all the pith of the back. So essentially, like they needed all the brainstem and the cerebellum and the.
Where does the horse dung come in? That just seems extraneous.
Well, that's how they cure it.
Poor young guy walking across the street gets hit by a carriage, and all these people just kind of descend on him. Pick the pieces off in the middle of the street.
Essentially just cut the back of his neck off.
Well, if he's in the street, they'll just kind of scoop it up with the dung that made up the street at the time and just, carry it away to their.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe all they have to do is harden it. And they're good.
Yeah.
What the heck?
But isn't that disgusting? I mean, just imagine who would want to do that? I mean, I guess like is thought to treat or cure alike. So they think if, somebody has an issue with seizures, they probably isolated that to the brain, and they think if you eat someone's brain that didn't have epilepsy, then you're probably fine.
Or they thought they were possessed by demons and killed them.
Maybe.
I mean, anyhow.
Malaise.
Oh, there's a cure for malaise?
Yeah.
When somebody near you starts having a seizure and you have no context for what's going on, I'm sure that's pretty off-putting and
Oh, terrifying.
frightening to somebody in that time. I mean, it's frightening now if you don't have any trend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could see why they would want a cure. And again, like we've said a multitude of times, people could listen to this podcast in 500 years and say these guys were morons. But anyway,
I'm sure since they basically drank instead of alcohol instead of water, I'm sure there were no seizures in the 17th century,
right? No. Or maybe withdrawal seizures if they couldn't get their booze.
Right. Yes.
All right. So the malaise, the malady known as malaise.
And what is the medical definition of malaise?
Malaise, annoying, irritating. No, just tired, fatigued.
It's like malaise and generally just means fatigued and tired. Yeah.
Now we probably have 1,000 diagnoses for malaise.
Plenty of reasons for it.
What's that?
There's plenty of reasons for it.
There can be.
It's just it just to be clear, it's not like a succinct diagnosis. It's more of a description of just
everything.
Being fatigued.
Just I don't feel good. Yeah, I don't feel like myself.
You could be malaised because you are extremely anemic and have no blood cells, or you could be malaised because your thyroid gland is underactive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Or because you're running around chasing your family and kids all day.
It wouldn't be so hard on them. I mean, this is just as evidence-based as bleeding somebody. So
yeah, truly.
That's fair. How do you cure malaise?
Well, so in 1492, Pope Innocent VIII was fed the blood of three young shepherd boys. I don't think the boys
his name, the Innocent.
Yeah, and I don't think that they volunteered for this because all of them died. This concoction was called blood marmalade. The recipe lasted for centuries. So that was the 15th century, end of the 15th century. So the record of monasteries making blood marmalade lasted through the 17th century.
Nice.
And there's a recipe in 1679 that reads, and this is a quote again, "Let the blood dry into a sticky mess and then place it upon a flat, smooth table of soft wood." It's got to be soft wood. It can't be hardwood. Cut it into little slices, allowing its watery part to drip away. And when it's no longer dripping, place it on a stove and stir it to a batter with a knife, not a spoon. When it's absolutely dry, place it immediately in a very warm bronze mortar, not copper, and pound it, forcing it through a sieve of finest silk, not terry cloth, and seal it in a glass jar, not aluminum. They didn't have aluminum back then. No. And then renew it in the spring of every year. So like they did this yearly, and blood marmalade was supposed to give you a little pep in your step. And it makes sense. Kind of.
I mean, at least it would contain
protein and iron is what it
iron
is.
And protein.
And I don't know why it had to be human blood, but it had to be human blood. It had to be like, for some reason they liked pale redheads because they thought like these people have the best blood. So if they saw like a dead pale redhead on the side of the road, they are absolutely gobbling that up. They're not going to tell anybody. They're just going to stuff it in a bag and take it back to the monastery.
I mean, the blood of redheads kind of persisted. I mean, there's this weird thing that redheads bleed easily.
Yeah, that's what they said in this thing. That was their argument, was that it was easier to get their blood.
Which, yeah.
You guys, I legitimately have a friend who has red hair. Do you think I should bleed him?
Yeah.
No. They hate, I don't know. The redheads I've known hated that kind of stuff.
I want to do a randomized controlled trial. I want to bleed every friend I have with different hair colors and then see whose blood leads to the best blood marmalade.
But you gotta let it dry to a sticky mess and then force it.
I'm willing to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you follow the recipe, it's probably fine.
It's the worst that could happen.
Yeah. Nothing bad could happen. Go back to the disclaimer real quick. Don't do this. All right. On to osteoporosis. Osteoporosis.
So it's from malaise to osteoporosis. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we've, in fairness, I don't think we've cured malaise to this day. So
no, have not. Definitely.
No, they tried. Again, they tried. We know that doesn't work. But
well, we have a cure though. I mean, cocaine. We have a cure now. So
it's true. It's less gross. Yeah, I think it's less gross. So osteoporosis is next. What's this condition?
Just thinning of the bones, weak bones in general. And I don't know that they, like, this is looking back at it. I didn't see what they had called osteoporosis.
They were
in
doing a lot of
old
DEXA scans
Englishy.
back in the day.
Mm-hmm. But this goes way back. So holy men in Arabia used to sacrifice themselves in preparation that at some point their body would be used to treat people with failing or broken bones. So they would ingest nothing but honey until they died.
Is that why they died?
Well, they essentially, like, they didn't eat anything but honey because they wanted to become honey crusted.
Okay.
And then their bodies were then immersed in jars of honey for 100 years.
That's really a long-term solution.
Yeah, I know. It was really
That
forward
would
thinking.
probably mummify them too, right?
Well, they
'Cause the
called
honey.
it
it's a honey.
mellified.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'm
the
sure.
mellified man.
Oh man,
put
this
that on
is
your
some
word of the day calendar.
Mhm.
fascinating chemistry. First, I want to know what happens to your body when you only eat honey.
Well, apparently you don't live very long. 'Cause they, like, they're like, these guys
Sugar.
they would just crap
Yeah.
honey.
I mean, yeah,
They
because
would
it'd be
sweat honey.
pure just sugar and osmotically pulling every bit of fluid you have from your GI tract all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure at some point you can't even absorb all that honey. And I don't know how much they
No.
ate, if they were like being force-fed honey. Maybe it wasn't a choice. But then the mellified man was later, 100 years later, like little slices were cut off and then people would eat them to like heal broken bones.
Fair enough.
I don't know if that actually
I mean,
happened.
thus
but-
far, I will say this is
It's
kind of
the
the best tasting
weirdest
thing I would
episode.
imagine of everything we've discussed.
Yeah, but once you get to that flesh, it's like,
But
ugh.
If it's coated in honey, I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just of the things you've discussed.
That's the
I'm just
classic
saying, I'm most
salty sweet combination. I mean, that would be
You're right.
Would
You're
you
absolutely
rather
right.
eat honey flavored
No.
mummy or
No.
mummy flavored honey?
honey flavored mummy all the time.
That's what I would think too.
Mummy flavored honey. Could you imagine? That would be so gross.
Trying to come up with a baklava mummy pun, and I can't do it.
No.
Oh man, grammar is so important, right? Because the order is what makes one of those things disgusting.
All right. So then on to bruising. Apparently bruising was a big time problem back in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody had any nutrition, and
Right. And we didn't have optometrists, so people were probably bumping into things all the time
you're absolutely right.
because their vision was bad. So their
Yep.
shins are probably all bruised, like a
Absolutely.
toddler's. So human fat was apparently important for treating bruises. This had gone on. It had to be human fat. Like, why? We have plenty of pigs
I
that
know
we would
there's
slaughter or
lots of
whatever, other
sources of fat.
animals.
How did they think that was like versus like?
Well, they would turn it into a salve. Maybe because like there was fat underneath the layer of the skin, so they were like
Okay.
adding fat to the top layer of the skin.
Yeah, I get you. They're like using it like a mortar.
Yeah, so they would rub human fat on bruises until they said it would probably go away within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and the fat cured the bruises because they all
every
disappeared.
time, every time, I cured him again.
It's amazing how many conditions that affect people tend to get better in about 1 to 2 weeks, no matter what you do.
But yeah, so the argument again was that human fat had to be used because it was thought to contain the spirit of the body from which they were taken.
That spiritless fat does nothing.
I know. What happens if like that person had a bleeding problem and then you rubbed it on there, like, and then you just started bruising even worse?
Probably just still smelled awful. I don't know.
Yeah. So they used it for gout too.
Well, that makes sense.
Essentially topical treatment.
I once,
Salve.
true story, had a conversation with an Irishman in a bar, I believe the village of Doolin, Ireland. I was vacationing there and ended up in a conversation with a gentleman probably in his 70s. At the time, I was a medical student, and this came up in conversation. And so he told me that he learned how to cure gout. And the cure for gout is to boil water and then try to drink it as hot as possible after you boil it. And he was drinking a fair amount of beer and whiskey while we were talking, and I wanted to suggest to him that decreasing the alcohol intake would probably help more, but he was very taken with the drinking the boiling or near boiling water. And that sounds horrible.
Yeah. No, please don't do that, everybody at home.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the cure for gout.
What's the next thing we shouldn't do at home?
Well, headaches were another thing. Headaches were bad. Didn't really have any good medicine to treat headaches. Well, we did. It's primarily alcohol.
Sure.
But so there's this this treatment, this medication called King's Drops.
Hmm.
So it was apparently regularly used by King Charles II, who was a proponent of corpse medicine. And I think it was King Charles I who wasn't. There was kind of like a split with the monarchy. Like some of the kings or ruling class were in favor, some weren't. But this physician, he was a 17th century brain scientist. And it's in quotes because
You put that in quotes.
he was probably a phrenologist. His name was
Fair
Thomas
enough.
Willis. So the King's Drops are a mixture of ground up human skull and alcohol, essentially. And so he would have a couple drops, he'd feel great. And I don't think it's alcohol like PBR or anything like that. It's probably like grain
Oh, God,
alcohol,
no.
essentially.
This is like probably equivalent to prison hooch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your headache's going to go away, but it's going to come back the next day. So you have to take him every day.
Sure enough, King's Drops daily.
Mm-hmm.
Hair of the dog, drops of the king.
Mm-hmm. And there was another recipe that would use ground up skull, and they would mix it with hot water and chocolate, and that was thought to treat bleeding.
I thought that was going to be a headache thing. I mean, that the chocolate actually with a little bit of caffeine might help.
Mm-hmm.
And at least the ground, I see this one I get. Like, grind up the skull because you have a head problem. Chocolate to make the skull taste better.
That chocolate to taste.
This one makes good sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Nosebleeds. So in the 17th century.
You say both of you just said, I get this one and this makes sense for ground up skull powder. So I'm just going to point that out.
Well, I think he's saying that like in the like treats like.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
No. Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, nosebleeds. So this treatment kind of gained the most traction in the 17th century. It was used up until World War II. So like, yeah, like recent time. So bone moss called usnea. Bone moss is apparently like the best moss to use. It's the moss that grows on skulls.
Okay.
So
what?
Yeah, you could treat, it was used to treat epilepsy. So kind of the same way with King's Drops, you would grind this up, make a drink, and that bone moss, the usnea would treat epilepsy. Or you could grind it into a fine powder and then put it up your nose and it would stop nosebleeds. This one probably makes the most sense out of all of them because you're using a topical, and maybe there was a procoagulant in the moss.
For the most physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
But putting a bunch of pseudo plant matter up your nose, especially fungal matter, seems to be a very bad idea.
Probably in the long term wasn't great. You would stop bleeding, but all bleeding stops eventually.
That's true. It's very true.
And then the last one, it's not really a malady, but it's just strength. Like they were always looking for that way to get stronger, that little pick me up. And we still do. You know, we've got energy drinks and Bangs are actually pretty good.
I thought you were, are we sponsored by them now?
Caffeine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say we still drink blood to get strong.
Yeah. My chest is super hairy. I've got a huge gold chain,
Nice.
backwards cap, Oakley M frames. I'm looking pretty sick.
Yeah, you are.
So like I said, kind of at the beginning, so corpse medicine has been along with us as far as we can look back in recorded human history. Probably even goes back farther than that. But Romans would drink the blood of a just killed gladiator because they thought that would give them strength. And then in the 16th century, crowds would gather at public executions. And we knew that because you could see the paintings and, somebody's getting executed.
Yeah.
There's tons of people in the crowd.
There's not much else to do in daily life back then. So that is entertainment.
So he thought it was entertaining or entertainment. And it probably was for the most part. But there were people that would go to the executions essentially for medicine. They would wait around with, and this is another quote from the Smithsonian article, cups in hands and waiting to quaff the red blood as it flows from the still quavering body of a freshly executed criminal. They would want the blood because it would help treat, again, primarily epilepsy. And so this was like the best blood to have. You want the redhead dead by the river. All right, that's pretty good blood. Like the older guy, you don't want his blood. But the freshly executed criminal, like that was the blood to have.
That just seems to make the most sense.
Yeah. So their thought was that the panic that one would feel just before being executed would increase adrenaline. And I'm not sure that they knew what adrenaline was, but they knew that there was some thing that made them feel a certain way when they were upset. So that would, when ingested, the more adrenaline there is, or the more panic, the more strength that you would have. And you get, the more likely that your epilepsy would be cured if you quaffed a cup of red.
I think again there. I think I follow the logic and how they got there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you go in. If you wanted your blood, you would pay for, and they called it a bowl of red. Like, I'll take a bowl of red and a hot dog.
I think too. I was reading about this a little bit, and it was particularly popular in 16th century Germany or like Germanic areas, and so that's kind of where a lot of, at least this part of it, seemed to come from.
Yeah, and Europeans believe that young flesh cured weak flesh, and another reason, and hopefully this doesn't get cut out, for eating the recently hanged, at least getting their blood, their cup of red from that person, is because when males get hanged, they often get erections from disruption of their spinal cord.
Yeah, so these people, basically hanging is breaking the neck back in the day as much as it is strangulation. And so, yeah, you're right.
Yep. Yeah. Half your nervous system, right's knocked out. So let's see, how does that work? Yeah, when you lose the nerves.
So they basically break their neck. This causes an immediate catastrophic spinal cord injury. And one of the odd things that happens around that, and it happens today when this unfortunately happens to people, is you get an erection.
Yeah, so they would see these boners after guys got hanged, and they're like, I want a bowl of red because that's going to give me virility. That's going to give me the sexual stamina.
So they wanted to be hung too? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's hung versus hanged.
I don't know if that's explicit. It's not. I feel like it's on the border.
Probably not. But come on, it was a good one.
It was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good
low-hanging
fruit. This it was really only for kind of the commoners. So the wealthy or the ruling class or whatever, they could just go to the apothecary and get their bowl of red. Like they would just
so this was money. The free blood, basically.
Yeah. Well, no, they would have to pay for
it. Farm to table.
Yeah.
What?
I wonder if they ever thought about eating the boner. Like, why eat the they must have known that the blood supplied
like for like.
Yeah.
I don't know if they knew that.
I don't think they knew a lot of things, man.
One thing I do like to think about is like how there had to have been those executioners that took a lot of pride in that job. The ones that got the guy the most riled up so that the blood was the best. Right? That has to have been a thing.
It must have been. Yeah. Because think about it, you could probably charge more for somebody who's really upset.
Right. That also reminds me, Mike, you got that time portal up and running again, didn't you?
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode.
Oh, let's fire it up. In 1574 England, a public executioner is starting his first day on the job.
Well, hello, good sir, and welcome to your new future here with the Royal Executioner Service. I see you got your company hood and executioner's axe already.
Well, it was a very reasonable onboarding process. Minimal paperwork, really.
I always said it's important to have a good HR department. Well, right this way. We'll take you past the holding cells to get to the tower. It's where our prisoner awaits.
Right, following you, sir. What did the condemned do?
Oh, he's the worst sort of prisoner for you to have on your first day.
Oh, is he quite violent? Does he have exceptional strength? Is he capable of extraordinary foul language?
No. He's worse than that. He's a stoic.
Stoic? You mean?
I mean, he shows no emotion. He just accepts his fate. There's no weeping, no gnashing of teeth, or renting of clothing, nothing.
I fail to see why that's such a bad thing. Doesn't that make our job easier?
I can see why you think that, but we need him to have fear. We need him to be under immense stress and pressure at this time. We need him to be crying and gnashing and renting.
Because it takes the sport out of it.
No. Because his adrenal glands won't be worth a whit when we sell them, post-execution, of course, to the apothecary. Do you think the adrenal glands of a stoic who never shows emotion are likely to fetch anything these days?
No, I suppose not.
Oh, he's right here. Hello, Harold. Time to go and meet your maker. This is it. Any final words?
No, I don't think so.
Now, hopefully, this time alone over the past few days has drummed up some fear and emotion about your execution, eh?
No, not particularly. I quite like the silence of solitary confinement, honestly, just to clear my head.
Oh, you really are the worst, you know that, Harold? I'm just a working man trying to pull together a living, and you're just sitting there, all calm, no stress or anxiety, about to be executed in front of a live crowd, and there's nothing, no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I mean, things happen. It's out of my control. Why should I worry about it?
You're taking this quite well, I'll say.
I'm going to go grab the transporting manacles. You see if you can stir any emotion up while I'm gone.
Okay, I guess I'll try. So, Harold, is it? Yeah, well, it's a big day, I guess.
Yeah, it's a day among many. It happens to be the day of my execution, but I'm honestly at peace with that.
I see. I think I'd be a bit worried if I was you.
Well, I'm not, so.
Not even a little bit of fear.
Nope. My absence of existence didn't bother me before I was born. Why should it bother me after I'm dead?
So, you have a family? I'm sure you'll miss them.
Nope. Just me. Nobody else to worry about.
I see. Well, this is my first day on the job, so if you could at least act scared when the older guy gets back, it would really do me a solid.
As much as I'd like to help you out, since I'm about to be executed, I think I prefer a poignant silence.
Not much for small talk, I see.
No, it's the worst.
Isn't it just a harmless activity, though?
You're wasting the little time I have left.
Yep, sorry about that. So, looks like rain today.
Please stop.
Yep, clouds came in from the west. That usually means rain.
Nobody cares about the weather.
I think the Castle Gardens could do with a light soaking, so I'm sure this rain's going to be welcome.
Please stop talking about the weather.
Right, sorry.
Let's just enjoy the silence and our own thoughts, right?
Absolutely. Can I tell you about this dream I had the other night?
Let me
Out! Guards! Take me away! I want my head off!
It was weird because I was in this field and Carol was there. I had seen her for a fortnight. We dated briefly many years ago. Anyway, she was surrounded by all of my family's dogs and they were just growling at me. What do you think that means?
Help me! Please kill me now!
Nobody wants to hear about my dreams.
Nobody.
Don't tell people about your dreams. What an interesting occurrence peering through the time portal.
There is a thought that eating mummies may have gotten traction from misunderstanding of ancient texts, which is kind of funny. So bitumen, I didn't look this up, what it was, but in this article, it said it's a naturally occurring substance used in ancient times to treat arthritis and other maladies.
That narrows it down.
Right. So it's
naturally occurring substance.
So
Great.
there is a Persian word for wax, which was, I guess, for all intents and purposes, the trade name of bitumen at the time. So bitumen is like the generic name, and then wax is the generic or the trade. So, and that Persian word is mummia. So then over time, as they looked at these texts, they're like, these ancient people would eat mummia to treat these maladies. So then they were like, oh, eat mummies.
Was this after the Brits stole all the mummies, and took them back to their own?
But
So they mistranslated it.
Yeah,
and then
became a
stole
whole
all
thing.
the
serves them
mummies.
right, dude. Then they all got cursed.
Yeah. I mean, this happened. So apparently, mummy transport to Europe had really decreased by like the 14th and 15th century. But back then it was like, we need all the mummies. Just give us all the mummies because we need mummia.
It's fair.
Yeah. Because we have arthritis. Anyway. Okay. That was a little aside. So dizziness. Dizziness is another malady that
It's every
people
ER
wanted
doctor's
to
favorite
treat.
complaint.
Oh my God. Yeah, seriously. That dizziness pops up and you're like, you contemplate your
Oh,
life
look at
for
the
a while.
time. I'm so close to the end of my shift.
Oh, I was going to go get some food. Yeah.
I'll be back in a minute.
And you know what? It's still always available for you to see because
Everyone
everybody's
just
doing the
leaves it.
same thing.
It's like one of those symptoms that can mean absolutely nothing or be something serious going on, and it's as vague gets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know that part in Captain America where Steve Rogers jumps on the grenade? That's the person who picks up that chart.
Mhm.
That's what they're doing for
Truly.
everybody else.
They are
Because it
heroic.
is one of those, it's not like the thing is irritating, but it's like it could be nothing or it could be something huge,
Yeah.
something that's life-changing and potentially high medical legal risk. And
Ugh.
anyway,
But we digress. You're going to offer a new cure for it, I see.
yeah, so you just eat a pulverized heart.
Sweet. Okay.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously.
so this was the quote. Again, I'm not sure what a dram is, but they would say a dram in the morning on an empty stomach was a prescription for dizzy spells. And a dram is thought to be a small amount of heart that's pulverized.
It's actually, I believe it's a measurement, like an old school measurement of liquid.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's a
really?
dram is
A
like
quarter-
a small
a quarter
serving, a little
drain.
less than a shot.
Okay.
And I only know that because I got a advent calendar one year that was a bunch of different whiskeys and scotches. Each one was a dram.
So it's probably mixed in alcohol. So really, the cure is always alcohol. You
Yeah,
just put
right.
Yep, absolutely.
But I
weird
wonder if
dippers
that's
and
where,
powder in it.
yeah, Dramamine comes from.
It
Because
could.
you eat a dram for dizziness. Dramamine's a motion sickness med.
I could have looked that up, but I didn't.
Yeah. I tell you, it's not easy to find this stuff. It's
No,
like
I get it.
you look, you get this one quote. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find anything on dram. So I'm glad you told me that. Hemorrhoids. Bad problem. So 17th century physician George Thompson, he recommended, and this is a quote, the terror-soaked sweat of an about to be hanged or just hanged man was the cure for hemorrhoids. So like you would like wipe these people down, take the sweat, apply it immediately to your anus, and then that sweat would scare the hemorrhoids into
What?
retreating back into your butt.
What? Immediately?
Immediately.
So at the execution,
Yeah.
so half the people are like palming the person about to be executed and then shoving their hand in their pants, and the other
Mhm.
people are standing around with a cup.
What if you had epilepsy and hemorrhoids and you're like, shoot, which one do I take?
That's
Oh.
Yeah. Just
That's
people just
weird.
rubbing sweat on their butts in the middle.
Or you just like, you're the guy up there, you're terrified, and all these people just can't wait to mop your sweat so they can
Yeah.
treat their hemorrhoids.
And
is your legacy.
Yeah, and
For
you've been to these
hemorrhoids.
executions before. You know what happens. You're like, oh,
Like I would want to cure something serious if I were about to die. I want to cure epilepsy or dropsy or, but
or distemper, but you're just gonna make one's hemorrhoids retreat
rabies.
to their-
Gotta cure- No, I'm just going to
AY.
scare hemorrhoids.
I have no more words for that.
Anyway, that was an interesting one. And then heavy periods. You could eat placenta. So the
Still done
fetus's
today.
yeah, the fetus's spirit would apparently suck the blood flow right back up into their Eucharist.
Is that
That's
from the
not-
book?
It's totally not scary at all. The spirit of a fetus
Yeah.
sucking blood up. That's not terrifying. in any way.
So monthly blood was a powerful therapeutic agent as well, but the blood had to be from a virgin for it to work.
Oh, there's always a catch. There's always a
Mhm.
catch.
Yeah, you
On
can't use
brand for
monthly
the
blood
medieval period.
from somebody who's already had sex.
Way to dodge that explicit tag. Nicely done.
This is my favorite. Ready? So for the treatment of cataracts, you would grind human poop up into a powder and then blow it directly into the person with cataracts' eyes. And I don't know what the
How
I
did
don't
they
know what the
treat the
thought-
subsequent horrible pink eye? That's
you thought farting on someone's pillow was bad. Maybe that's where it comes from.
This one I don't know where they got there.
how is that like for like?
I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm at a loss. I don't
So,
know.
No, don't.
It's
don't do
really
that,
crappy
people.
when you can't see.
Mhm.
Oh.
It's a good way to get freckles. They're temporary. I wonder why they had to dry it. Why didn't they just?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you
The
dry,
smell,
I feel like
Mike,
it's
the
safer if
smell.
you dry it.
Probably.
Not by a lot, but definitely
Yeah.
safer than fresh.
No, but it must have worked for somebody. Like why would they continue to do it if it didn't do anything? Somebody's vision got markedly better after somebody. queefed
No. Somebody made up
dried
a story
poop in
about
their-
their vision getting better to trick their friend into doing this,
Ooh,
and it
yeah.
became a thing. That's exactly. This was viral before the internet.
right? Like Jackass 1694.
There was nothing to check. You couldn't, like, if somebody came out and just wanted to screw with somebody, they would just say, "Hey, do this." You would do it because there was nobody of authority to say otherwise. You couldn't really verify this if you were likely uneducated. And there's some 17th century doctor that thought it was hilarious that he got a whole culture to do this.
This is a night soil guy looking for a side hustle. He's
Probably.
like, I'm just gonna save a
Night
little bit of this
soil.
poo
Or
and just dry
the
it
night
out.
soil harvesters never really got cataracts, and people made that association.
Because they died by the time they were 26.
That's correlation does not imply causation, but it probably did have something to do with it.
Probably. All right. So the practice of medical cannibalism, that's essentially what we're going to call it, died out in the 18th
Corpse
century.
medicine is way cooler sounding.
Yeah, I know, right? But medical cannibalism is pretty bad too. So just a funny way that somebody had written about this, they said it died out. It was thought to be around the time when people started using forks and taking baths. Essentially, you didn't use your fingers that you were scratching your butt with to eat, and you took
Right.
baths, and everybody started to get it a little bit more healthy.
It's a small step, but
So in 1847, there's an Englishman that was apparently told to grind up the skull of a woman and then mix it with molasses to cure his daughter of epilepsy. So it's like kind of the latest
The last
use of
the last mark.
It clearly didn't work. Now, there's better documentation about this. They're like, he did this and he probably shouldn't have. Well, it didn't do anything.
Right.
But then there was a lot of wives' tales. There's a belief that there's this thing called a thieves' candle. That was a candle made of human fat. So you could paralyze a person by lighting a thieves' candle, and they can just go steal all their stuff. I don't know. But that
I
belief,
bet that didn't work.
Yeah, but that belief continued into the 1880s.
Never underestimate the human ability to make stuff up and then believe it really hard.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of thieves getting caught by the police.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. You could still buy mummy flesh into the early 1900s. Apparently there was a German catalog that you could buy it from. And who knows what it was. It was probably just anything. They're not going to actually sell you mummy flesh, but you're going to pay for it.
No, I got a guy though if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. And then the last known attempt to swallow blood and an execution was in 1908. Apparently somebody tried to get a cup of red or a bowl of red.
Just for old
turned away
time's
at the
sake.
door. Mm-hmm. So, in some ways this practice potentially lives on, using cadavers for bone grafts, even organ transplantation. When you think about it, it's like similar, but not the same, because you're not eating. If you get a kidney transplant, you're not going to eat the kidney. Like, oh, thanks, I feel much better now.
Yeah, we would already figured that out by then.
Mm-hmm. You're essentially taking things from the deceased and using them again in the living.
I really like that reframing of it. I bet it's more of a branding thing where they don't want to call it corpse medicine, though.
Yeah.
It's an interesting tie-in that after enough time and understanding, there kind of was a way to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of incredibly. And I don't know what that says about whether you should try weird things to help problems before you really think it through. That could be problematic, I think.
I think it might just add some.
But we did think it through. Think about that. Hundreds of years, we thought it through. Like, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah, but how many hundreds of years did they blow the poop into the eye before they figured that out?
Who knows? Maybe not enough. Maybe they needed to blow the poop somewhere else to treat something else.
Well, before Mike figures out where that is, I think that's all we have for today. We appreciate everyone listening, and we'd love to hear from all of you out there. If you would like to send us a message or provide feedback, we can be reached through our website, www.forhistorianspod.com. There you can find links to our social media sites. We take emails at forhistorianspod@gmail.com, and we work to respond to all posts on our various social media accounts. If you are old-fashioned, hit me up on my pager. Just use the code 1337 after your number so I know it's legit. Those of us who went through high school in the late 90s love that joke.
Wait, what does that mean? Is that a thing? 1337?
It's elite. L-E-E-T. Elite speak.
I don't get it.
Pwn that noob. That's our new sign-off. Does it help to record with a cat on your lap?
Yes, it does.
Nope. Go away, kitty. Nope, stop coming back. You can't come up here right now.
Auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen, Bratwurst.
Okay. All right, sorry. Who's going to be pharmacist?
Hallo, Bratwurst. Bundesliga. Pfaffergnugen. Pfaffergnugen, Bratwurst. Hamburg, Berlin.
All right. So Aaron's working over there. What'd you come up with there, Aaron? Okay.
I don't know. It's going to be very rocky. What is it I can help you find? Hello.
That works.
and
Yeah,
welcome,
I think that's close enough.
Welcome to my humble apothecary. Is that
Oh, now it's French.
too much French?
Welcome to my apothecary.
Welcome to my humble apothecary,
Is it-
Pfaffergnugen. What
Can
is
I
it
help you find?
Okay,
I-
let's try it.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, here we go. Hello and welcome. Nah,